Welcome to Being the Best Community Action Board. This video series was created by Meliora Partners through a training and technical assistance grant with the Federal Office of Community Services. My name is Owen Heiserman. I have worked in the Community Action Network since 1977. My colleagues and I at Meliora Partners have worked with more than 100 community action agencies throughout the country in the past 12 years. We developed this video training series to achieve 4 results. One, we wanted to create training that can be delivered at every board meeting, not too long, but very much to the point. We wanted to immediately apply the information presented to real board functions, as you will see in our exercises. We wanted to make training materials that could be reviewed online, preferably, after each training session. And we think this is a way to reduce the cost of training. We based this training on Information Memorandum 82. The document is the primary guidance on community action boards other than the Community Services Block Grant. This is the first of 6 CAA board training videos on the responsibilities of community action boards as they're discussed in Information Memorandum 82. Those areas are leadership, development or finding resources, planning, operations, evaluation, and oversight of the executive. We are also planning a unit on shared governance in Head Start. Our first topic is the board's responsibility for leadership of the Community Action Program. We're going to consider 3 areas of leadership: organizational authority, the anti-poverty mandate, and accountability for outcomes. We'll look at those one at a time. Follow along on the worksheet your facilitator has distributed. Answer each of the questions with the month and year when your board acted on each of the leadership responsibilities that we discuss. Leadership authority is often referred to as fiduciary responsibility. Although that term is often thought of as meaning financial responsibility, I think in this case it's more useful to think of fiduciary in the broader term of stewardship, as in the sense of acting for and on behalf of another. The board's leadership authority originated, of course, in federal anti-poverty legislation in 1964, originally. The Community Services Block Grant, the current legislation, requires that community action programs be administered by a tripartite board that fully participates in the development, planning, implementation, and evaluation of the program to serve low-income communities. That's the language in the current reauthorization law. Since 1981, the Community Services Block Grant delegates authority and funds for community action to the states. Governors designate public bodies or nonprofit organizations as CSBG recipients. The board of a nonprofit already has the authority based on its incorporation. City and county governments are required by CSBG legislation to assign oversight of their community action programs to an advisory board that they create through a legislative act such as an ordinance or resolution. To quickly recap, a community action board gets its authority to lead a community action program from the federal requirement that a tripartite board operate the program in local communities, and through designation by a state as the entity which will carry out the CSBG program. Both governing and advisory boards must maintain that authority through periodic monitoring by the state CSBG office. If that office reports conditions that need to be fixed, the board must submit and complete a corrective action plan to keep itself in good standing. Federal legislation from the 1964 Economic Opportunity Act to the 1998 reauthorization of the Community Services Block Grant charges community action programs with the leadership responsibility to fight poverty. A community action board exercises its anti-poverty leadership in 4 important ways. On your worksheet, note the times when your board acted on this leadership responsibility. The board exercises anti-poverty leadership by putting that mandate in its mission statement. Here's an example that does so very directly. Quote, "The mission of the Community Action Agency will be to serve as a leader in the fight against poverty by helping people, changing lives, building communities, and forging coalitions to increase self-sufficiency for low-income families." As you can see, that's going to cover everything we're going to talk about in this series. The second way the board exercises anti-poverty leadership is by recruiting low-income people to its board of directors. They bring a direct experience of poverty to the board's actions, and the board service allows them an opportunity to learn how to function in civil society. Thirdly, a board exercises anti-poverty leadership by operating programs that change the lives of low-income people. And last, the board exercises leadership by partnering with community programs and organizations. Community action agencies are in the business of bringing resources together from all sectors of the community. They are not the single solution to poverty. Take a few seconds here to update your worksheets, and we will talk about the third area, the responsibility for results-oriented accountability. A community action agency also expresses its leadership by demonstrating accountability for results through the creation of performance-based goals for the organization. It does this in its annual and multi-year plans. The Community Action Network has created a performance-based planning framework, which is called ROMA, an acronym which stands for Results-Oriented Management and Accountability. The ROMA system established 6 national goals, focused on 3 areas of change, as we can see in this graphic. The first area focuses on changes in the lives of low-income people. The second, in changing the community conditions in which low-income people live and which support their efforts to rise out of poverty. And the third area is about capacity building, one of the agency itself to produce results and of its capacity to bring in other elements of the community, as we mentioned earlier. This model, this framework, is used by agencies and states to plan and to evaluate the work of moving people out of poverty. States require agencies to report their progress in this format, and the Community Action Board must review and approve the submission of this report. Each year, the state offices report all of the activities of their grantees to a national organization which assembles an annual report for the country. The board also exercises accountability by annually evaluating the performance of the executive, its one employee. The executive's annual evaluation is the responsibility of the whole board. It should follow a procedure that has been written down and approved by the board when the annual plans are approved. The measures should be defined when goals and performance indicators are approved, and the measures of performance should be based on objective information that demonstrates that approved goals and objectives have been achieved. The board has a number of sources of information with which to evaluate the executive. The first is the information that it requires of the executive and the organization on an ongoing basis that tells them the results of the organization's work within those goals and objectives. The condition of the organization's finances should be regularly reported, as should compliance with laws, regulations, and contracts related to the organization's work. And there should be a sense of how the agency's employees are performing and whether there are difficulties or challenges that need to be met in human resources. Additionally, the board can seek information from outside sources, one of which is the annual audit report, a major source of feedback on the financial management of the organization. Additionally, funders who have done monitoring during the year will have issued reports stating their results and if there is a need to correct any conditions that are not acceptable. The board members also have informal interactions with members of the community, and from those they should be able to get a sense of how the organization's reputation and standing are faring in the community. And finally, the board can conduct formal surveys or interviews with community partners, with low-income people, or a variety of other sources, which will create a consistent set of information that makes comparison between groups a little easier to carry out. In a public community action program, the charter creating the advisory board will spell out the responsibilities the board has for evaluating the executive. However, those will be within the context of the personnel policies and management structure of the local unit of government, which will ultimately make personnel decisions. Take a few seconds here to complete that last section on the back page of your worksheet. This then concludes our presentation on the board's responsibility of leadership. To review, the leadership authority the board has is based on the Federal Community Services Block Grant Law, and in turn the state's designation of an organization as the recipient of CSBG funds. The board's leadership responsibility to fight poverty should be expressed in its mission statement. It should take the form of the presence of low-income people on its board of directors and in the operation of programs that have a significant impact for the better on the lives of low-income people. And it should be carried out in partnership with other organizations and programs in the community. The board's responsibility for accountability is expressed in plans, annual and multi-year, using the framework of the national goals and the performance indicators. And those plans should be used, along with other information, to evaluate the performance of the executive director and the overall success of the organization. Your facilitators will review the worksheet with you to recall when your board has exercised these leadership responsibilities. They also have a very brief evaluation of the presentation we would like you to complete and return. Thank you for your commitment to serve on this Community Action Board. We hope the training series helps you to be a more effective board member. This is the end of Unit 1 of Being the Best Community Action Board video training series. Thank you for your attention. We look forward to your participation in the rest of the series.